The year was 1806, and the world was on the brink of chaos. Napoleon Bonaparte, the ambitious and ruthless French general, had already conquered much of Europe. His army was a relentless force, sweeping through nations and toppling monarchies with ease. In the heart of Germany, the Holy Roman Empire, a vast and ancient confederation of states, was about to face its most significant crisis in 1,000 years. For centuries, the Holy Roman Empire had been a patchwork of duchies, principalities, and free cities, all loosely united under the rule of the Habsburg emperors. Despite its often chaotic structure, the empire provided a sense of unity and identity for the German people. However, by 1806, the empire was a shadow of its former self. Napoleon's relentless advances had already stripped the empire of its lands along the Rhine, and the Habsburgs were struggling to maintain their grip on power. The final blow came on August 6, 1806, when Emperor Francis II, the last Holy Roman Emperor, officially dissolved the empire. This act was a desperate attempt to save what remained of his dynasty. By renouncing his title and adopting the new title of Emperor of Austria, Francis II hoped to preserve his family's rule in the face of Napoleon's overwhelming power. The news spread like wildfire across the German lands. In the imperial cities, the people were stunned. The Holy Roman Empire, which had stood for over a millennium, was no more. The symbols of their shared identity, imperial coins, banners, and the grand imperial palace in Vienna, suddenly seemed hollow and empty. The impact of this collapse was profound. The German princes, who had once been bound by their feudal ties to the emperor, were now free to pursue their own interests. Some aligned themselves with Napoleon, hoping to gain favor and protection. Others sought to strengthen their own territories, seeing an opportunity to expand their influence. But the most significant impact was cultural. The loss of the empire was felt deeply by the German people. The Holy Roman Empire had been more than just a political entity. It was a symbol of their shared history and identity. With its dissolution, the German nation was left searching for a new sense of purpose. In the midst of this crisis, a group of intellectuals and artists emerged, determined to preserve and redefine German identity. Among them was the lexicographer Johann Campe, who, in his dictionary of 1807, argued that the German language was the last remaining link to their collective heritage. The philologist Achim von Arnim published a seminal edition of the Nibelungenlied, an epic poem that celebrated the valor and heroism of ancient German warriors. In Berlin, the philosopher Johann Gottlieb Fichte delivered a series of powerful lectures, calling on the German people to rise up and reclaim their national pride. One of the most influential figures in this movement was Johann Joseph Görres, a romantic writer from the Rhineland. In 1807, Görres published Die Teutschen Volksbücher, a collection of early modern German chapbooks. These chapbooks, which had previously been dismissed as lowbrow literature, were now seen as a rich source of German folklore and history. Görres's preface to the book was a powerful allegory, describing a dream in which he visited an underground cavern filled with the spirits of Germany's legendary heroes, including the great Emperor Frederick Barbarossa. According to the legend, Barbarossa did not die during the Crusades, but instead entered a state of suspended animation, waiting in the Kyffhäuser Mountain for the moment when Germany would once again need a strong leader. This myth captured the imagination of the German people, offering a glimmer of hope in a time of great uncertainty. The legend of Barbarossa quickly spread throughout Germany, becoming a symbol of the nation's resilience and the promise of a better future. The brothers Grimm, who were already famous for their collection of fairy tales, published a series of German legends in 1816, including the story of Barbarossa in the Kyffhäuser Mountain. The tale described how the emperor's beard had grown through the stone table where he sat, and how he would emerge when the ravens stopped flying around the mountain, signaling the beginning of a new era of prosperity. As the years passed, the legend of Barbarossa continued to evolve, becoming a powerful symbol of national unity and pride. In 1890, the Kyffhäuser monument was built on the mountain where Barbarossa was said to be waiting. The massive structure, featuring a statue of Emperor Wilhelm I, was a testament to the enduring power of the myth. The fall of the Holy Roman Empire in 1806 marked the beginning of a new era for Germany. It was a time of uncertainty and change, but it also gave rise to a vibrant cultural movement that sought to define and celebrate German identity. The myth of Barbarossa, with its promise of a return to greatness, played a crucial role in this process, inspiring generations of Germans to look to their past for strength and guidance in the face of a challenging future. In the 19th century, murals became a big deal in public buildings. Artists like Cornelius from Dusseldorf and others across Europe started creating large, colorful paintings for palaces, government buildings, and other important places. These murals often had bright colors and clear lines, making them perfect for decorating large spaces. This trend wasn't limited to Germany. It spread all over Europe. For example, Delaroche painted the hemicycle at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, and Daniel Maclise created murals for the Westminster Parliament buildings in London. But Germany had a special focus on murals that told stories about the nation's history, especially from the medieval period. One of the most interesting examples of this is the Imperial Hall Kaisersaal in Goslar, Germany. The murals here were painted by Hermann Wislicenus, who was chosen for the job because of his detailed plan for the paintings. The murals in the Kaisersaal aren't just pretty pictures. They tell a specific story about Germany's history. Wislicenus wanted to create a kind of graphic novel on the walls, showing a timeline of the German Empire from Charlemagne to Wilhelm I. One of the most important murals is the large allegory on the west wall. It shows Wilhelm I, the new emperor, riding a black horse with the crown prince and Bismarck, the architect of the German Empire, by his side. The painting is full of symbolic figures, like the maidens representing Alsace and Lorraine, and the river god symbolizing the Rhine. In the background, famous emperors like Charlemagne and Barbarossa look down, approving the new emperor's reign. This mural is like a visual story of the German Empire's history, showing how it has come full circle. The murals on the west wall also tell the story of the empire's rise and fall. On one side, you see the early emperors like Charlemagne and Barbarossa, who represent the empire's strength. On the other side, there are scenes from the Reformation and the 30 Years' War, showing the empire's struggles. The central mural ties everything together, showing Wilhelm I as the new leader who will restore the empire's glory. Wislicenus also included a clever twist. He left out the Habsburg emperors who ruled the empire for about 400 years. By doing this, he created a direct link between the great emperors of the past, like Barbarossa, and the new Hohenzollern emperors. This made Wilhelm I seem like a natural successor to the great emperors of old. Another fascinating part of the Kaisersaal is the use of myths and fairy tales. On the east wall, there are scenes from the grim fairy tale, Sleeping Beauty. This might seem out of place, but it actually fits perfectly. The story of Sleeping Beauty, with the kingdom in a long sleep, is used as a metaphor for the German Empire's period of decline. The murals show the empire as if it's in a deep sleep, waiting to be awakened. When the empire is finally restored, it's like Sleeping Beauty waking up from her long slumber. The murals in the Kaisersaal are a mix of history, myth, and allegory. They tell a complex story about the German Empire's past, present, and future. Even though the murals might seem overwhelming with all their details, they are a powerful way to understand the ideas and beliefs of the time. They show how art can be used to shape national identity and create a sense of shared history. Wislicenus is an artist who doesn't do subtle. He likes to pack as much meaning as possible into his art, making sure every bit of it is loaded with significance. Think of it like a treasure chest, where each piece of treasure tells a story. Wislicenus doesn't just put one treasure in. He fills the chest to the brim with layers and layers of stories. Imagine walking into a room where every wall, every corner, every inch is covered with paintings. Each painting tells a different story, but they all come together to tell one big, grand story. That's what Wislicenus does. He makes sure that every scene, every character, and every detail is part of a bigger picture. It's like he's saying, look, this is the whole history of our culture all in one place. One of the most interesting things about Wislicenus's work is how he combines different types of stories. Some of his paintings are like fairy tales, with princes and sleeping beauties. Others are epic, with heroes and battles. And then there are the historical scenes, showing real events from the past. All of these different stories are mixed together, creating a world where time doesn't move in a straight line. Instead, it's like everything is happening at once, all around you. One small panel above the north exit door is a perfect example of this. It's tiny compared to the rest of the room, but it's packed with meaning. The panel shows Wilhelm I, the emperor, visiting the town of Goslar to see the restored buildings. In the bottom left, there are people dressed in old German clothes welcoming the emperor. These people look like they are from a different time, but they're there to greet the emperor in the present. It's like time has looped back on itself. In the top left, there is a scene from a fairy tale, a prince about to wake a sleeping beauty with a kiss. This small panel ties together different times: the fairy tale time, the time of the legend of Barbarossa, the actual historical time of the building, and the present time of the emperor's visit. It's like a tiny universe where all these different times coexist. When you enter the Kyffhäuser, the emperor's hall in Goslar, you're not just looking at paintings, you're stepping into a world where all of history is alive. It's like a magical mountain where time slows down, and everything is part of a grand story. This is what Wislicenus wanted to create, a place where visitors are not just observers but part of the story itself. This idea of a magical place where time stands still is something that has been around in literature and art for a long time. One famous example is a story by Johann Görres, where a narrator goes into a cavern filled with the spirits of Germany's past heroes. When the narrator comes out, the world has changed, and the knowledge he gained is only relevant to future generations. This idea of a magical, timeless place is also found in Wagner's opera, Tannhäuser, and in Thomas Mann's novel, The Magic Mountain. In the Kyffhäuser, Wislicenus created a space where all of these ideas come together. It's a place where the past, the present, and the future blend into one continuous story. It's a place where visitors can experience the grand narrative of German history, from the legends of old to the triumphs of the modern state. So, when you look at Wislicenus's work, you're not just seeing art. You're stepping into a world where history, legend, and imagination come together to create a powerful, immersive experience. It's a place where the past is not just remembered, but relived. In the middle of the book, we dive deep into the world of Charlemagne, a key figure in European history, especially in France and Germany. Charlemagne, or Charles the Great, has been an important part of history books for a long time. Even though some of these books might not have many pictures, there's a good chance you'll find Charlemagne in them. But in other European countries, he's not as well known. When we look at images of Charlemagne from France and Germany, we can see how history and politics have shaped these images over time. For example, in France, Charlemagne's image has changed with different political periods like the Lacism of the Third Republic, and in Germany, it has been influenced by events like the Kulturkampf under Bismarck and the rise of the Nazi regime. We can also see how new technologies, like photography and color printing, have affected how these images are made and shared. In Germany, artists like Julius Schnorr von Karelsfeld, Alfred Rethel, and Friedrich Kaulbach made paintings of Charlemagne, but these were not as popular as you might think. In France, most of the images of Charlemagne came from less famous artists and illustrators. One of the most famous images of Charlemagne is the painting of his coronation by Raphael in the Vatican, but this wasn't often copied in modern times. In a French schoolbook from 1952, we see a typical set of images of Charlemagne: the death of Roland at Roncevaux Pass, Charlemagne with students at the palace school, and his imperial coronation in Rome. These are the most common images in French schoolbooks. In Germany, the focus was more on Charlemagne's mission to convert the Saxons, the destruction of the Irminsul, and his role as a builder, especially of Aachen Cathedral. One of the most interesting parts of the book is how the imperial coronation of Charlemagne was depicted differently in France and Germany. In Germany, the coronation was often shown as a tricky moment, where the Pope surprised Charlemagne while he was praying. Alfred Rethel's fresco in Aachen is a good example of this. The Pope is shown putting the crown on Charlemagne's head while he is kneeling, and Charlemagne looks surprised and even angry. This image was copied by other artists like Adolf Streckfuss and Wilhelm Zimmermann. In France, the coronation was shown more as a peaceful and grand event, without the political tensions seen in German images. The French focused more on Charlemagne's role as a wise ruler and a patron of learning, often showing him with his scholars or watching the sea for Viking ships. These differences in how Charlemagne was depicted show how history and politics can shape the way we see the past. In Germany, the coronation was a way to talk about conflicts between the church and the state, while in France, it was more about Charlemagne's role as a great leader and a protector of knowledge. The way we imagine Charlemagne, or Charles the Great, reveals a lot about the history and culture of the countries that remember him. In France, he's often shown as a pious kneeling king, crowned by the Pope in a grand, pre-arranged ceremony. This image was common in French schoolbooks, like the one from 1952, where Charlemagne is depicted submitting to the Pope. In Germany, however, the same scene was often portrayed differently. German artists like Friedrich Kaulbach showed Charlemagne as a towering, proud figure, almost as tall as the standing Pope, emphasizing his greatness and power. In France, another popular image of Charlemagne is that of a school founder. He's often depicted in the palace, overseeing the education of young boys, emphasizing his role as a patron of secular learning. This image aligns with the French secularist values of the Third Republic, where education was seen as a tool for national unity and progress. In Germany, the same scene was often reimagined, showing Charlemagne in a monastery, highlighting the religious aspect of early medieval education. The story of Roland, Charlemagne's loyal paladin, also differs between the two countries. In France, Roland is a symbol of feudal loyalty. He's often shown dying in the Pyrenees, blowing his horn to warn Charlemagne of an ambush. This image reinforces the idea of a knight's unwavering loyalty to his lord. In Germany, Roland represents urban freedom and the struggle against feudalism. Instead of dying in the Pyrenees, he's depicted as a giant statue standing before town halls, symbolizing the city's independence and legal rights. Even the small details, like Charlemagne's facial hair, can tell us a lot. In French depictions, he often has a beard, which aligns with the image of a pious religious ruler. In German depictions, he often has a mustache, which emphasizes his strength and leadership. These different images of Charlemagne show how each country has shaped its own version of history to fit its cultural and political values. In France, Charlemagne is a symbol of religious and educational progress, while in Germany, he is a symbol of strength and urban independence. Each version of Charlemagne reflects the unique identity and values of the country that remembers him.